Irashaimase! Hello and welcome to Fitaurus Kitchen. I'm your host, Chef Fitaurus. It's time once again for Shoot 'em Up Saturday. And on the menu this Saturday, we have Shikhondo Soul Eater. Bullet hell shoot 'em up from Korean developer Deerfarm, recently released on Steam. What kind of taste will it have? Let's get cooking and find out. So the main menu, we do have a couple options here. Under the option menu, we can change whether the music and the sound effects are on or off. There's no volume setting, strangely enough. If you want to adjust the resolution or remap your controls, that has to be done from the Unity launcher that is launched when you start the application. There's also the rankings, which is local only. That's a little disappointing, as in shoot 'em ups in today, you really want to be able to challenge yourself against the community, so not having online leaderboards is a disappointment, but not necessarily a deal breaker. And then there's the game start. Under game start, we have 3 modes we can possibly play. There's the customize mode. In customize, you can change some of the base settings for how specifically the soul collect gauge works, and I'll talk about what that is here, adding some differences and some replayability to the title, which is great as it's otherwise a very short shoot 'em up as is. Boss rush, where you can challenge the bosses beginning to end. And of course, the standard arcade mode, which is what we'll be looking at today. There's also 3 difficulty settings: easy, normal, and hard. Today we'll just be playing easy to keep things simple. We have our character select. You can choose between the Grim Reaper or the girl. The primary difference between the two is their shot type. The Grim Reaper has a wide shot, great screen coverage, but not very strong overall. The girl has a more focused attack, but with a couple homing shots that really help cover the screen as well, and she's what I prefer over the Grim Reaper and the Grim Reaper's wider shot, just because I like that really focused attack. So we'll be playing as the girl today. Once you've selected your character, you're taken to a tutorial, but it doesn't cover anything I'm not going to talk about, so we'll just skip past that. It also shows the controls for the keyboard controls, and if you're playing with gamepad, it doesn't show the controls for the gamepad you're using. A little disappointing, but not necessarily the end of the world. So Shikhondo Soul Eater is a vertical scrolling shoot 'em up, and it's got the usual controls that match that. So we have, of course, our shot, and as you can see with the girl here, she does have a couple beams of her shot that home in on other enemies, helping to keep the extra enemies under control. In addition to our shot, we do have the ability for focused movement, which focuses our attack as well as slows our movement down. Unfortunately, I'm not aware of a way to have the attack and the focus movement on the same button, so you'll be pressing 2 buttons when you're wanting to shoot and move with your focus. And then the last of our 3 buttons is the soul attack, which under normal circumstances will activate, we'll use one of our bombs and activate a screen clearing bomb, or rather at least bullet canceling bomb, that will deal heavy damage to the enemies on screen, but depending on how powerful they are, it might not kill them. However, if we can graze enough of the enemy shots by being close to them, you might notice as they go and pass, we have a brief moment where it looks like flames are flying into our character. Then we'll build up the soul meter, or rather the soul collect meter that's on the left there. And once we activate that, we basically go into a superpower mode where our shots are more powerful, we're pulling in souls for a big score, and it's also possible to go into a second soul collect mode at the end by burning one of our soul attacks, so the butterflies on the bottom of the screen are our lives, those are the number of hits we can take, and the flames are our soul attacks, which act as the bombs, which it's great that we actually have a mode where we can activate our bomb without actually expending a bomb. But the choice is there if we want to have a more powerful attack. So we'll graze these easy to dodge bullets to build up our meter. Then once we set that off, we're in soul collect mode. So there's awesome bullet cancel that happens at the beginning of the mode, and also at the end. But if you time things right, you can activate a second Soul Collect mode, which increases your power even greater to deal massive damage and quickly take care of bosses. But it does expend a soul attack, though. Now here we have the second form of the boss. All the bosses do have second forms. So they're yokai, basically like demons, ghosts, however you want to, spirits, however you want to choose to translate that. And they're apparently these rogue yokai that have escaped from Limbo, and we're retrieving the souls that they've collected as well as resealing them. So it's kind of got a light oriental horror theme to it, as the yokai themselves are somewhat demonic in both appearance and attack. One thing I do have to say, though, is not so much with the first boss, but some of the later bosses have these beautiful bullet hell patterns that I was just mesmerized by as I was dodging. And that's the basics of Shikhondo Soul Eater. There are some enemies throughout the course of the stages that when you defeat them, they will also trigger a bullet cancel. So you'll make all the bullets become these like soul orbs, the same way you do if you go into Soul Collect mode. Let's go ahead and just finish off this boss and we'll get to stage 2. Second Soul Collect, and can we do it before the Soul Collect ends? Yes. Boss defeated. Then, once you finish the stage, you have this quick stage results screen. You get points for souls collected, how many life you have, the difficulty multiplier, and then you get a reward. So you can pick an additional soul attack, or you can pick additional life. So depending on if you've burned soul attacks, or if you've gotten hit, you have the ability to continue to play the way that is best fitting your playstyle and also your overall performance. So one thing I haven't talked about is the aesthetics of the game itself. So the enemies that we're fighting I feel are relatively plain, but the bosses as well as our characters I think are beautifully done, like sprite work. I really do. And then we've got both the background and those borders are just gorgeous, especially if you like more oriental aesthetic art. Definitely one of the highlights of the game. And there we have it. That is Shikhondo served up for your enjoyment. So the minus flavors. The biggest minus flavor I have with the game is actually its length. It's only has 5 stages total to it, and it goes by really quick. They're not particularly difficult either. If you're playing it on easy or normal, you'll have a very easy time of clearing the game. You might have to burn a couple continues, but that's really going to be it. After a little bit of practice, you might even be able to easily one continue clear it. So if you're looking for a challenge, this one might not be the best title. As kind of somewhere in between like a plus and a minus, the game also has a little bit of a generic feel to it, though it does have the neat like graze and soul collect modes that we have throughout the game. It's not anything that we haven't seen in other shoot 'em ups. But on the plus flavors, definitely the art. I feel that though the background and even just those like side borders always being there looking beautiful really adds a lot to the game itself. So I can recommend this title to those who are looking for a quick shoot 'em up that they haven't experienced before. But for the most part, it's one that, while fun and enjoyable, ultimately isn't going to last you a very long time. Alright, that'll about just wrap it up for this week's episode of Shoot 'em Up Saturday, and as always, I want to thank you so much for coming out, and I look forward to seeing you again next week.